In different parts of the world, from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of Peru and the ruined places of Mesopotamia, there are places that seem to hold evidence of a strange event. Stones that seem to have melted, fused together, and turned glass-like because of extreme heat. These are not ordinary ruins that were simply damaged by time or collapse. In many of these places, the damage is much more severe. It's as if the entire structure was exposed to such extreme heat that the stone itself softened, almost flowed, and then hardened again. But before we continue, please like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much. One of the most well-known examples is the Vitrified Fort in Scotland. About 250 years ago in the Scottish Highlands, a simple walk led to a strange discovery. A man named John Williams was walking in the rocky area when he noticed something unusual. At the top of a hill called Tanis, there stood an ancient fort, but it didn't look like an ordinary stone. It shimmered in the light in a way that ordinary stone did not. The walls of the fort were not just broken or old, they looked melted. The stones fused together and became glass-like, as if they softened or melted and then turned hard again. There were parts that looked like black glass instead of stone. This wasn't just simple damage, but a clear transformation. The fort was built more than 2,000 years ago during the Iron Age, but it appears to have been exposed to such intense heat that the stone almost melted. The problem is there are no volcanoes in Scotland and no natural process there that can produce this kind of heat. And it's not just in one place. All over Scotland, there are more than 70 forts like this. In Europe, there are over 150. They all have one unique characteristic. The walls look like they turned into glass because of intense heat. So the question is no longer just about what happened to this fort. The bigger question is what happened in all these places. It became even more mysterious when scientists studied it. To melt rock and make it look like glass, you need heat that reaches around 1,200 degrees Celsius. Nowadays, you need special equipment to reach that. But in 500 BCE, the most advanced source of heat was just an iron forge. And that wasn't enough. Even a big fire rarely reaches 1,000 degrees, and it only lasts for a short time. But the evidence in the forts shows that the heat was long-lasting and continuous. And it was even on top of the walls, not just on the ground where fire is usually hottest. In the 18th century, there were different explanations. Some said it was lightning, some said it was a volcano, and others had all sorts of explanations. But in 1780, there was an important conclusion from the Royal Society of Edinburgh. This was not natural. It was made by humans, and when they tried to recreate how it happened, the mystery only deepened. In 1980, the archaeologist Ian Ralston conducted an experiment. He built a replica wall using Iron Age methods. They gathered wood and burned it to create a large fire that lasted for 22 hours, but the result was not enough. The heat only reached around 800 degrees Celsius, which was lower than needed. The stones got hot, but they didn't truly melt or turn glass-like. Because of this, one thing became clear. Simply burning wood is not enough to explain what happened to these ancient forts. The following excavations made things even more mysterious. Under the melted sections, archaeologists found older structures that were still intact. Normal walls, post holes, and typical fort defenses. This means it didn't happen while the fort was being built. Something happened afterward. The melting pattern was even more unusual. It usually started at the top of the wall and moved downward, and the inside was more affected than the outside. If the enemy burned it, the outside should have been the most affected, but the opposite happened. It appears that the heat originated from the inside, not the outside. It was focused on parts inside the structure. This wasn't random destruction. It seemed controlled and repeatedly done in many places. Many theories came out. Some said it was lightning, but lightning leaves a unique mark called fulgurites, and there were none of these in the forts. Some suggested special fires like Greek fire, but that came later in history, and the heat might not have been enough. There are even stranger theories. That's the explanation, but it doesn't match the evidence. What's clear is that the melting didn't come from outside. It started inside the walls. Even though these have been studied for hundreds of years, the vitrified forts in Scotland remain a mystery. Now let's move on to another strange place, the Black Pyramid. South of Saqqara, east of Sneferu's Bent Pyramid, you'll find the Black Pyramid of Dashur. It's a structure that's different compared to other pyramids. It's not just because of its appearance, but also because of the questions it raises about its construction, use, and the reason for its collapse. Before, it was covered with white limestone like other pyramids, but now it looks dark, ruined, and as if it has sunk into the desert. This is where the name Black Pyramid comes from. Because of the exposed mud core and broken stones, it looks burnt and dark. At first, it looked bright and white. It was a huge landmark in Dashur that reflected the sun. But there's a theory that says a strange event happened that caused intense heat. This caused it to be damaged and shrink to almost half its original size. According to this theory, the dark color and cracked interior of the pyramid are not just because of the passage of time or simple collapse. It is possible that extremely high heat from a major event changed its material, down to the smallest part. From this perspective, there are parts of the pyramid that seem melted, as if they were exposed to heat beyond what ordinary fire can produce. Supporters of this idea point to the unusual appearance of the pieces of stone around the pyramid. There are parts that look bent or fused together in a way that's not typical of simple collapse. If the structure had just collapsed normally, the breakage would be cleaner and the debris more even. But what we see is chaotic fused together, and in some parts it's like they were squeezed and stuck together because of intense heat. For them, this is a sign of extremely high heat that affected the entire structure. There are also theories that say there was a major event in the past that affected Egypt, a kind of disaster involving heat, pressure, and possibly water. According to others, the heat inside the pyramid may have risen excessively, perhaps due to a chemical reaction, sealed chambers, or processes that we still don't understand. With this idea, it's possible that the pyramid is even older than what is commonly said, and that later generations just found it already damaged. This means its destruction was not due to a simple construction mistake, but because of a much stronger force. Now let's move on to another strange mystery, the so-called melted stairs. In the deserts of Egypt, inside the Hathor temple in Dendera, a place known for its strange carvings that look like lights or light bulbs, there's another mystery that's even stranger. In one part of the temple, you can see stairs that look like they've melted. Its appearance is unusual, especially because it's surrounded by well-made and detailed carvings and sturdy pillars. The stairs look like they softened and flowed, like wax melted by heat. Because of this, many theories have emerged about how this happened. Some say this was intentional, that maybe there was technology back then that could give intense heat to the stone without damaging the surroundings. Others say that they might have used chemicals that could soften the stone so it could be shaped and then harden again afterwards. If this is true, it means they had deep knowledge of chemistry that we still don't fully understand today. But there are also simpler explanations. According to other experts, this is not actual melting. This could just be the result of long years of use with many people passing through it, priests, visitors, and worshippers. Along with the effects of wind, sand, and weather, the shape of the steps may have gradually changed. And to our eyes now, it looks like it has melted even though it really hasn't. Despite the different theories, there is still no single explanation that is fully accepted by everyone, whether experts or ordinary people. Now let's move on to another mystery, the city of Sodom. According to Genesis, Sodom and Gomorrah were two ancient cities destroyed by God because of their wickedness. In the story, God sent two angels to destroy the cities and chose to save only Lot and his family. As they were escaping, the fate that befell Sodom and Gomorrah was extremely severe and destructive. Just like the story of the Great Flood, this event has long been regarded as merely a lesson about God's wrath, and not as a real disaster. But in 2006, this perspective began to change because of discoveries in the ancient city of Tol el Hamam. During the Bronze Age, Tol el Hamam was the largest city in the Jordan Valley. At its peak, it was almost 10 times bigger than Jerusalem. Because of its importance, archaeologists have been studying the site for a long time. But in 2006, there was an archaeologist named Stephen Collins who discovered something. They started to dig deeper until they reached a layer of soil that matched the period around 1650 BCE. There they found a thick layer of ash, almost 5 feet deep. Inside it, there were burned human bones, melted mud bricks, and other building materials. But the most unusual thing was that there were pieces of pottery that seemed to have turned into glass with a greenish color. When these were sent to the laboratory for analysis, it was found that they had melted due to extremely high heat, and this happened in a very short period of time. This is where Collins began to ask, what could cause this kind of heat? No technology from that time could have done this. As the study continued, they discovered something else. Underneath the layer of ash, there was evidence that people had been living in the area for thousands of years. But above it, you can see that the place was abandoned and no one lived there for about 700 years. Why did the people suddenly disappear? Because of this question, a major research project began, involving 21 scientists and lasting more than 15 years. In 2021, they published the results in a well-known scientific journal, and their conclusions surprised many people. First, they found out that the cause of the melted bricks, burned bones, and glass-like pottery was not due to war, fire, or a volcano, because even these cannot produce such intense and rapid heat. Because of this, the researchers believed that the cause could be an asteroid or a comet. But there was one problem. There was no crater in the area to prove that there was a direct impact from space. So a surprising conclusion was formed. According to them, what happened was something called a cosmic airburst. This happens when an asteroid or comet bursts in the atmosphere as it speeds through it. To understand this, they compared it to what happened in Tunguska, Siberia, in 1908. In that year, an asteroid measuring 180 feet entered Earth's atmosphere at a speed of 34,000 miles per hour. It exploded in the sky before it even hit the ground. The impact was extremely powerful, an explosion equivalent to 1,000 nuclear bombs that flattened nearly 1,000 square miles of forest. But according to researchers, what happened in Tol el Hamam was even more powerful. In over 15 years of study, they discovered even more. They found tiny grains of sand with cracks that indicate extreme pressure. This means that it wasn't just heat that occurred, but also an extremely powerful force. Quartz, which is one of the hardest minerals, was affected. This means the pressure was not ordinary. Their discovery became even more unusual when they found a high level of salt in the same layer of soil. It ranges from 4% up to 25% in some areas. According to the researchers, this may have happened because the explosion occurred near the Dead Sea, which has salty water. The powerful explosion blasted salt into the air, spreading it across the area. When it entered the soil, it became impossible for plants to grow for many years. This is the possible reason why the place was abandoned for 700 years. All the evidence was put together, and a clear picture of what happened was formed. In the researchers' own words, the air temperature quickly rose above 3,600 degrees. Fahrenheit clothes and wood instantly caught fire. The swords, spears, mud bricks, and pottery began to melt. In just a few seconds, the entire city was burned. After this, a shock wave hit the city at a speed of approximately 740 miles per hour. This was even faster than the strongest tornado ever recorded. The buildings were destroyed and turned into ruins. None of the estimated 8,000 people and animals in the city survived. Their bodies were torn apart by the force of the explosion. And this is where the question comes in. Doesn't this resemble the description in the Bible? A city suddenly burned, melted, and destroyed by fire from above. The bones were crushed and turned into tiny pieces. Isn't this similar to a person turning into a pillar of salt? The salt in the ground that prevented plants from growing? Isn't this similar to the destruction of the entire land? In other words, what happened in Tol el Hamam, isn't this similar to the story of Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible? According to the researchers, they even reached the point of including this idea in their study and publishing it in a well-known scientific journal for the entire scientific community to see. Now let's move on to another mystery, the Tanis Cataclysm. Tanis is an ancient city that was once located in the northeastern part of the Nile Delta in Egypt. In ancient times, it was a prosperous city during various periods of Egypt's history, but despite its importance, it remained a mystery for a long time, until 1939, when it was discovered by a group of French archaeologists after 12 years of excavation. And what they found was not normal destruction. Instead, it was a place that seemed to have been struck by a great disaster. Large statues, obelisks, and huge stones were found destroyed and scattered. Some of these stones came from the Aswan quarry, which is more than 1,000 miles away. One of the discoveries was a massive statue made from a single piece of granite. It is estimated to be 90 feet tall and weighs approximately 1,100 tons. This is where researchers began to ask questions. How were such massive stones transported from such a distant place? And what could have caused this kind of damage? The site became even more mysterious because of its surroundings. Almost no plants grow there. Even though other parts of the Nile Delta are known for their fertile soil, this peculiarity became even more significant when Tanis was linked to the city of Zoan in the Bible. In the verses, the destruction of the Egyptian idols and the burning of Zoan are described. And there is another surprising detail. Some granite stones in Tanis show traces of intense heat, as if they were exposed to extremely high temperatures. This cannot be explained by ordinary fire or war. In ancient times, the giant statues seem to have been swept away and scattered by a tremendous force. During the excavation, it was also discovered that the entire city was buried under soil 10 to 20 feet deep. This means that the disaster not only destroyed the city, but also completely buried it underground. It's as if it was erased from the world. This pattern of destruction suggests a powerful force from the outside, a natural event beyond human capability. There are some theories that say this may have been caused by an intense energy event, such as a plasma ejection from the sun, according to some scientists. But until now, the question remains open. What really happened to Tanis? This disaster may not have only killed all living things in the area, but also changed the entire environment. The ancient city was buried under soil and debris as if it was completely hidden from some. But this is not the only mystery of Tanis. The number of obelisks, artifacts, and large statues made of granite gave some researchers, like Brian Forster, the idea that these might have been made using a lost advanced technology. In that place, there are so many broken obelisks, more than in any other part of Egypt. There are theories that these obelisks were part of an energy system that might be connected to the pyramids of Giza. And if that's true, Tanis was at the heart of it. Something went wrong with this system that caused the destruction of the city. Now let's move to Peru. Pre-Inca vitrification. In the ancient parts of Peru, beneath the Inca and Spanish structures, we can see some of the most impressive stone walls in the world. Places like Coricancha and Cusco are known as masterpieces of Inca engineering. But according to some researchers, the very base of these walls is even older than the Inca. It may have been left behind by a much older civilization that came before them. What makes these walls truly unique is not just their age or size, but how precisely the stones fit together. The large blocks fit together like a puzzle. There are different angles, but the joints are so tight that not even a blade can fit between them. This isn't just a simple stacking of stones. It's like a three-dimensional puzzle that's perfectly crafted. But the mystery doesn't end there. In many parts, you can see a strange shine on the surface of the stones. It's like there's a glass-like finish, especially on the edges and between the stones. There are areas where it looks like the stone was partially melted and then hardened again. It's as if it went through intense heat. In Peru, this isn't easy to explain. You can see this appearance not only on the outside, but also right between the stones themselves. It's smoother, more tightly joined, and in some parts it's as if they partially fused together. If this interpretation is correct, it would mean a major change. The question is no longer just how they carved the stone so precisely, but whether they actually used heat in the process itself. There are researchers who believe that the stones weren't just shaped. It's possible that the surface was heated to make it softer, and while the stones were soft, they were joined together to achieve an exact fit. This way, the seams wouldn't be visible. Each piece had to be carved perfectly. Because while the stone is hot and slightly soft, it naturally conforms to the shape of the adjacent stone, and when it cools down, it hardens again, forming a perfect joint with almost no gap. This idea becomes even more intriguing when you look at the so-called stone knobs on the stones in Peru. These protruding parts are often said to have been used to lift the stones, but that's not the case. They became aligned. Many of them are in impractical positions. Sometimes they're even underneath the stone, where it's hard to use them for lifting. Some of them also have flat surfaces, which don't really seem meant for transport. Because of this, there could be another possible explanation. Some of these knobs might be the result of the stone heating process. They're like drops or outlets of material that softened while being heated and then hardened again as it cooled down. Even more surprising, there are some walls in Peru that seem to have been destroyed by intense heat, as if the stone itself melted. Everything becomes more complicated because of the type of stone used in the Andes. The ancient builders used hard stones like andesite, rhyolite, limestone, and sometimes granite. Andesite and rhyolite have fine grains, so if it is affected by heat, some parts may appear finer and shinier. Researchers also notice that at some stone joints the texture is finer compared to other parts. This is exactly what you would expect if that part was heated and then cooled quickly. In terms of science, this means a lot. It's not just pleasing to the eye. It's also very strong against earthquakes. The zigzag shape of the joints provides extra grip and stability. So even after centuries of earthquakes, the walls still stand, while other newer structures have collapsed. There are also some stones that have unique features. Some have round holes and extremely smooth curves. This adds to the idea that they use techniques we still don't fully understand. Whether it's because of heat, advanced carving, or a combination of both, one thing is clear. These walls are extraordinary. To this day, the pre-Inca vitrified stones in Peru remain one of the greatest mysteries in archaeology. If it's true that heat was used, it's possible that there was a lost method of construction that predates even the Inca. And if that's the case, places like Coricancha are not just simple ruins or temples. They could be traces of an ancient world that has long been lost. Now let's move on to another mystery, Mohenjo-Daro. In the plains of the Indus Valley in present-day Pakistan, you can find the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro. It is one of the most advanced cities of the Bronze Age. It was built around 2600 BCE. This civilization is known for its well-organized urban planning, drainage system, and organized structures. At its peak, thousands of people lived here. There were straight roads, multi-story houses, and a system comparable to more modern civilizations. But it was suddenly abandoned, and until now, it is still unclear why. When it was first excavated in the 1920s, archaeologists expected to see a normal decline of a city, but what they discovered was different. There were skeletons sprawled on the streets. It was as if people suddenly died and had no chance to bury them. There were even some who were together as if they died at the same time. That alone was unusual, but there was something even more mysterious. In some parts of the city, there were materials that seemed to have been exposed to extremely high heat, much higher than the normal fire used in ancient times. Because of this, there are theories that a sudden high-energy event might have happened. Some studies even say that there was high radiation in certain areas, and the skeletons showed unusual effects. But these claims are still being debated. Many experts still stick to simpler explanations, like flooding from the Indus River, climate change, or the gradual departure of people. Until now, the question remains open. What really happened to Mohenjo-Daro? There is strong evidence that the river's course changed over time. This may have affected the culture and trade. That's why the city was abandoned. But even so, this still doesn't fully explain the traces of extreme heat and the sudden deaths of the people. Because of this, even ancient texts were included in the study. Some researchers point to stories in India, such as the Mahabharata. Here, weapons are described that can create intense light, extreme heat, and widespread destruction. Although this is considered a myth, some believe that it could be a memory of real events that were passed down through stories. Now let's move to another unusual place, the melted desert. In the remote part of the Eastern Sahara, on the border of Libya and Egypt, there is an extraordinary discovery. This is called the Libyan desert glass. It is scattered over a vast area and has a yellow to green color that sparkles under the sun. It looks almost transparent and is very pure. What makes it unique is how it was formed. To become this kind of glass, it needs heat of over 1,700 degrees Celsius. This is much higher than the normal heat in the desert, and there are no volcanoes in the area that could have created this. That's why the leading theory among scientists is that it was a cosmic event. A meteor or comet may have exploded in the sky above the desert. Because of its force, it released intense heat that instantly melted the sand. Afterwards, it cooled rapidly and turned into glass. This event can be compared to a more modern example, the Trinity nuclear test in 1945. When the first atomic bomb was detonated in New Mexico, its heat melted the sand and turned it into a green glass called trinitite. Both are the result of extreme heat that occurred in a short period of time. But there is a big difference. Trinitite is man-made. Libyan desert glass is not. It became even more significant because it was used in ancient Egypt. One of the most famous examples can be seen in Tutankhamun's jewelry. At the center of it is a scarab made from this very glass. For the ancient Egyptians, this material seemed not to come from the earth. It was as if it came from the heavens. And this is where the big question comes in. Is all of this evidence of an ancient, advanced weapon? Or is this a sign of a great cosmic disaster? Until now, there is still no definite answer. Some believe that before recorded history, there were ancient civilizations that were more advanced than we think. Civilizations capable of building massive structures that even today are still difficult to explain. They were able to lift enormous stones weighing thousands of tons. And these were positioned so precisely, it seems as if modern technology was used. Many of these stones are difficult to lift even with modern cranes. This makes their achievements even more astonishing. Not only that, they were also able to shape the hard stones into exact sizes and forms with almost no mistakes. That's why even today, the question remains, who were these builders really? How were they able to accomplish things that seem impossible? Were they simply ancient people? Or were they experts in a technology that has long been lost to time?